I'm going to be reading you a book about an elephant, just like the elephant on my t-shirt. So when you think about an elephant, what do you think of? What kind of creature? Maybe you think of something that's big and strong. But in this book, we're not going to be talking about an elephant that's big and strong. We're talking about an elephant which is a little bit scared and a little bit afraid, or at least his mummy is. So this book is called Emily Brown and the Elephant Emergency. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Emily Brown and an old grey rabbit called Stanley. You can see Emily and her rabbit called Stanley. One day, Emily Brown and Stanley were whitewater rafting through the turbulent waters of the Zambezi River with their great friend Matilda. Matilda is an elephant. Matilda was just steering them skillfully over the very last rapid with her trunk when there was a... What do you think it is? Ring, 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 ring. Yes. What makes that noise? It's the telephone. Emily Brown answered it. Emily Brown speaking. Can I help you? Help! Said the voice at the other end of the line. This is Matilda's mummy here, and I'm terribly worried. I'm worried that the boat might sink. I'm worried that you might get eaten by crocodiles. I'm worried that the hippos could be bad-tempered, and Matilda isn't wearing her Wellington boots. Matilda has to be so careful that she doesn't catch a cold. Do you think it's usual for elephants to wear Wellington boots? I'm not sure. Let's see what Emily Brown says. Elephants don't wear Wellingtons, Matilda's mummy, replied Emily Brown. And this phone is for emergency calls only. Please do not use the phone unless you have an emergency. And Emily Brown put down the phone politely. There's Emily Brown putting down the phone politely but rather firmly. A few days later, Emily Brown and Stanley were searching for new species in the land of dinosaurs. They were just investigating a particularly interesting set of footprints with their good friend Matilda when there was a... What do you think it is this time? That's right. The ring, 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 ring on the emergency telephone. Emily Brown answered again. Hello, this is Emily Brown. What is your emergency? It's Matilda's mummy again, said Matilda's mummy. Can I speak to Matilda? I'm even more worried than I was before. I'm worried that a brontosaurus might sit on someone. I'm worried that the T-Rex might give Matilda a nip with his pointy teeth. And it is way past 5 o'clock, and Matilda hasn't had her tea yet. Matilda has to have her tea on the dot of 5 o'clock. Do you think that elephants have their tea on the dot of 5 o'clock? I'm not sure about that. Elephants do not have tea times, Matilda's mummy, replied Emily Brown. Matilda will eat when she is hungry. Again, Matilda's mummy, can I ask you not to call this phone unless you have a real emergency? This telephone is for emergency calls only. And Emily Brown put down the phone a bit more firmly this time. You can see Emily Brown's beginning to look a little bit angry. A few days later, and Emily Brown and Stanley were climbing the peak of Mount Everest. Poor Matilda was having a little bit of trouble holding on to the rope because of her Wellingtons and her lunchbox getting in the way, when there was a... What do you think it's going to be? That's right. Ring, 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 ring on the emergency telephone. Hello, snapped Emily Brown. Emily Brown speaking, and this better be an emergency. It certainly is, said Matilda's mummy. This is Matilda's mummy here, and I am more worried than ever. I'm worried that Matilda might get caught in an avalanche. I'm worried that Matilda might get frostbite on her trunk. I'm worried that Matilda seems to have forgotten her nice clean socks. And again, Matilda is a very smart elephant, and she likes to look spotless at all times. Matilda's mummy, cried Emily Brown, very firmly indeed. Elephants do not wear socks, clean or otherwise, and clean socks are not an emergency. A few days later still, and Emily Brown and Stanley were searching for diamonds in the deepest, most caves of the earth. But Matilda was not joining them. Oh dear, why do you think Matilda might not be joining them? There's Matilda, looking a little bit sad. She was worried she might lose a Wellington, or drop her lunchbox, or dirty her nice clean socks. You can see her very smart Wellingtons, but I don't think they're making her happy. So she sat and watched Emily Brown and Stanley, and waited for the emergency telephone to ring. She already had her helmet on, because she knew that was what her mummy would want. Look, that's Emily Brown and Stanley, and they look like they're having a lot more fun than poor Matilda. Poor Matilda waited, and she waited, and she waited by the emergency telephone. But still, Matilda's mummy did not call. And then poor Matilda grew sad and ill. Tears rolled down her floppy trunk. My mummy has forgotten me, cried Matilda, and the light on her helmet flickered and went out. Emily Brown looked at Stanley, and Stanley looked at Emily Brown. Matilda was one unwell elephant. This really was an emergency. Emily Brown picked up the emergency telephone and called Matilda's mummy. But Matilda's mummy did not answer. Why do you think she didn't answer? Can you see what's in Matilda's mummy's bag? There's a lot of things. She looks like a busy elephant. So Emily Brown and Stanley took Matilda gently by the trunk, and they went to find Matilda's mummy in the heart of the big city. And there's where Matilda's mummy is. It turned out that Matilda's mummy needed rescuing herself. She had been kidnapped by a great grey busyness, and it would not let her go. Matilda perked up immediately. She threw off her Wellingtons, chucked away her lunchbox, and tossed her clean socks into the nearest puddle. It was a very daring rescue. You can see Matilda's mummy at the top of the building, and Matilda being a very brave elephant and climbing all the way to the top of the building. A few days later, Emily Brown, Stanley, Matilda, and Matilda's mummy were searching for the source of the Nile in the jungles of Africa. They were surrounded by crocodiles. Nobody had on their Wellingtons. It was way past tea time, and Matilda's mummy's socks would have been the dirtiest of all if she had been wearing socks, but she wasn't, because elephants don't wear socks. Suddenly, there was a ring, 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 ring on Matilda's mummy's mobile phone. But one of the crocodiles ate it. So we'll never know what the emergency was. I wonder if it was important. You can see Matilda's mummy's phone saying, Matilda's mummy, we have an emergency here. We think we might have. But it was too late because the crocodile ate it. I hope you like that book. And I hope you get to go on lots of adventures like Emily Brown and Stanley and Matilda the elephant.